Brisket done right. Trimmed, seasoned, smoked, and sliced to perfection. This is episode 1, and we're just getting started. Okay, so this was a 19-pound brisket, so I had a lot of fat trimming to do. If your brisket is already trimmed, it might not take as long, but for me, it took a little while. So if it's not trimmed, what we're going to do is we're going to trim it down to about 1/4 of an inch thick. Don't worry if it's your first time. It's like my third time doing it, and I still take off too much fat sometimes. And as you can see next to my hand, there about in the middle, I took off a little too much fat, and you can see the meat. But I promise it'll be fine. Just don't scalp it too much, and it'll all work out. Now that we got the fat trimmed, oh wait, hold on. Don't worry, I didn't trim off too much fat. One side, known as the fat cap side, has a lot more fat than the other. This is the other side. What we're going to do next is we're going to add mustard just as a binder. This is going to allow the seasoning to adhere to the meat and not fall off when you go to flip it. So just add a decent amount of mustard and rub it in. And don't worry if you don't like mustard, I promise you will not taste it at all once it's fully cooked. Now that we got our binder applied, we're going to heavily season both sides. But I like to start with the non-fat cap side first. That way when I go to put it outside on the smoker, I'm not rubbing off the seasoning on the fat cap side, if that makes sense. So what we're going to do is heavily season. I use a variety of seasonings. I know a lot of people just use salt and pepper. I honestly use a variety. So the one I'm using right now, I believe, was my Buttery Steakhouse by Kinder's. It's a type of all-purpose seasoning. Has a lot of your typical go-to ingredients in there. I'm going to season it heavily. Based off the size of this brisket, it is super thick, so do not worry about over seasoning for the most part. You want to apply heavy seasoning. If you don't, you'll run into the same issue I've run into before, where you do not develop a decent bark. The meat will look, let's just say this, it won't look pleasant. So season heavily, especially when it comes to your black pepper, paprika, and garlic and onion powder. Those seasonings there do not contain any salt, so you don't have to worry about over salting them when it comes to those. But just make sure you season very heavy. Now that we got the meat seasoned, we want to pat the seasoning on to be sure that the seasoning won't just fall off, but is actually adhered to the meat the way we want it. And if you have any bare spots on your meat, feel free to follow up with a little extra seasoning, whether that be garlic powder, onion powder, black pepper, anything but extra salt. If you felt that you seasoned it properly with salt the first time, try not to follow back up with that. We don't want to make it too salty, but we do want to get decent seasoning on there, as it will help with the formation of the bark later on during the smoke. Once your brisket is seasoned, it's time to put it on the smoker, but don't forget to preheat your smoker before you get started. Alright, now that my smoker has reached my ideal temp of about 250 degrees, it's time to start smoking. I use a Thermo Pro 2-probe thermometer whenever I'm smoking my food. One of the probes is on my grill grate, so it's giving me an instant readout of the temperature of the grates. And the other probe is into the brisket, that way I also have an instant temperature where my brisket is at. This allows me to know when it hits my ideal temp of 165 degrees and when it's time for me to pull the brisket and start the wrapping process. So it's been about 8 hours. We've been rolling at a constant 250 degrees, and the brisket is now at an internal temp of 167. We were looking for 165, so almost perfect. Time to pull this brisket, take it inside, and get it wrapped. Time for the wrapping process. I use butcher's paper and my homemade beef tallow. If you're not familiar with the beef tallow, I'll share a link to the video in my comment section. So we're going to put some beef tallow down on the paper first, as well as some on top of the brisket, just to help retain moisture and as well to help that bark to continue to develop. We're going to wrap it up, put it in the oven at 250 degrees until we reach an internal temp of about 203 to 205. At this point, there's no need in putting the brisket back on the smoker. With it being wrapped, it will no longer absorb any more smoke flavor. So you can just save yourself some wood and put it in the oven at about 250 degrees. Now that the brisket is completely lathered in beef tallow, we're going to wrap it up for the remainder of the cook. I strongly recommend, if you don't have one, purchasing a thermometer that can stay in the meat throughout the entirety of the cook. That way you're not having to interrupt the cooking process by checking the temp of the brisket. Once the brisket reaches about 203, 205, the probe should go in and out of the brisket with no resistance. If there is resistance, allow it to cook at 250 and check it about every 30 minutes until the probe slides in and out of the brisket with no resistance at all. It's been about 8 hours now. The brisket reached an internal temp of 203. The probe was going in and out of the brisket with absolutely no resistance at all. And you can see just how juicy this brisket is. Ideally, you would let this brisket rest for at least 3 hours before slicing into it. But I was pressed for time, headed to a cookout, and I had no choice. But as you can see, or will see, that did not sacrifice the juiciness of the brisket at all. Time for the moment of truth. The knife's cutting in with ease, really no resistance at all. I can tell already. I can see the juices pouring out when I'm cutting it, how juicy it's going to be. And let's see. Oh yeah, that's a winner. Oh yeah, perfect, juicy, just like we wanted. Let's see if it also now passed the bend test. It was literally trying to fall apart on my hand as I was picking it up. But yes, it most definitely passed the bend test, A+. As you can see, very juicy, and yep, pulls apart like butter. I'll rate this brisket a B because of the bark formation, but we'll try harder next time.